Hi, everybody, and welcome to Coffee with Craig. This is where I talk about the world in general through the eyes of a psychic medium and with a spiritual view of things. And today I'm going to talk about the riots happening in France. Well, shocking events happening in France, and we saw it coming, didn't we? On this channel, those of you that follow this channel will know that I have been talking for some time about the upcoming riots that are going to infect France. In fact, I was saying it for a while, for the beginning of the year, a little bit further back, actually. And most recently, at the beginning of April, I put this little clip out in this video. And we're making these predictions on the 13th of April, 2023. It's still there in France. And I think it's brewing. And I think there's going to be, Macron will go. Yeah, he will go from power. Yeah, he will go. And I think he'll be taken out reasonably soon. I don't see him being around very long. And I think Le Pen actually will one day be in power in France. So these are not good situations, I feel, because I feel we will even see sort of mobs on the streets, and we will see people taken out as scapegoats, and we will see mass protests and looting going on. So I've been saying that this is just the start, because unfortunately these riots in France are going to spread. I've said it already, and I feel it still very strongly in my bones, as it were, that we're going to get riots in the most unexpected places. For example, Sweden. We're going to see riots in Berlin. We're probably going to see riots in Barcelona, somewhere in Spain, I feel as well. There's going to be riots that are all going to be kind of melded in with this. It's going to be all over Europe, Hungary too. There's going to be all sorts of public unrest. Already we have sort of movements more towards what people would in the past call the right. In Italy, we're seeing a move to more right type of thinking. And out of all this, we're going to see a beginning of new governments, much more right-wing governments, such as Le Pen in France. I've always said that I feel that she would eventually become the president of France. I've said it a long time ago. If you look back through my videos, I said it a very long time ago, actually. And I've always felt that sooner or later she will take the reins of power in France. And this is going to have quite a lot of effect upon the rest of Europe. So it's already happened in Italy. We're seeing it happening in France. And part of the bigger picture, which is something I've also talked about a lot in my videos, for those of you who follow my channel, I've talked about the eventual breakup of Europe into like a German federation, a French federation, and smaller sort of groups of countries, all of whom are not going to be in conflict. They're going to still work together, but I'm seeing much more independent legislation being brought in. Because right at the moment, people like Macron, for example, who I think will fall quite soon, he's not going to do anything about all this, really. I mean, he was very strict when it came to the yellow jacket protests in France, because they were protesting about him and his policies. This is something much more nebulous, isn't it? It's very hard to put your finger upon what is it exactly, what is the spirit behind all this that is driving people to do the sort of shocking behavior that's going on in France at the moment. Macron is woke. He's Mr. Woke. He doesn't want to upset anybody. He wants to look like he's the nice guy and so on. But, you know, that type of policy don't work against this sort of huge level of aggression, because I think there's a lot of wokiness behind all the problems that have become part of this big issue. I said it before, I feel Macron will fall, and I think that's coming quite soon. And this is also, like I say, the end of Europe in a way, the end of the European Union, I feel, the beginning of that, and the beginning of a whole new change of the way things are going to go. And when we get people like Le Pen coming into power, Marie Le Pen, you know, those in America and that might not know about the European politics, but she's quite a right-wing type of mindset. She's strongly against illegal immigration. She's not particularly happy with Islam. She's not particularly happy with the rights that people are going to get, you know, I've got already. And she's coming in as a sort of a kind of reaction to much of the kind of wishy-washy politics that we've had. We have it here in the UK, you know. The one thing that France has is it has leaders that it can look to as a substitute for some of these wokey sort of politicians, you know. I mean, the same thing happens in Canada's got the same problems too. It's all over the world. We've got similar problems where everybody's sort of nesting their own eggs, they're nesting, looking after their own nest, you know, looking after their own interests. Don't upset the apple cart, you know, we're making a lot of money out of this. Meanwhile, the countries are becoming more and more divided. So we've got the same here in the UK. You know, we've got Conservatives and Labour here in the UK, you know, and they're sort of apolitical. They're almost the same. Neither of them are going to sort it out. Neither of them are going to have the courage to really go into these issues and address them, because we'll have the same problems here. We'll have the same problems here in London too. It's all just waiting to pop. It worries me. It worries me a lot, because, you know, we're in a situation really which is very dangerous, you know, where the countries are kind of now really calling out for strong leadership. And the last time this happened, we ended up with leaders like Hitler, didn't we? We ended up with leaders like Mussolini, with Franco and Stalin even, but less so. But, you know, people go, history does this. It swings to the other extreme. And I worry that we could end up in a very dangerous situation. This is the start of something very serious, I think. You know, what do you think? Do you think I've gone too far with this? Because I feel that something really is bubbling under the surface, because people's feelings are not being addressed. Put your comments below. You know, I'm not saying this is right. I'm not saying this is the right thing that should happen. I'm just saying these are my feelings, these are my insights, and these are based upon the things that I've been talking about for a long time and haven't really kind of fully expressed to the extent that I feel now, because, you know, it scares me, because what I saw seems to be coming true. I mean, I looked at the news today, this and a number of other things that have come up actually, and I said to Jane, oh my God, the things I'm predicting are coming true. Oh God, you almost feel a sort of a sinking feeling, because you think, oh my God, if I saw that, you know, like I said about mining, I also said about the Russians would put mines in the Ukrainian power stations, you know, nuclear power stations. Oh my God, let's hope that don't happen too. So I don't want to scare people, because we can always change things. We can always change things. But, you know, it's not looking good at the moment, is it? You know, all this in France, I mean, there's opinions now, but all this in France blew up, didn't it, over what really was an isolated incident. Now, I'm not playing that down, because it was a very bad thing. And I think the police misbehaved there very badly, you know, and that should be brought to book, and that needs to be sorted out. But I remember also recently in France, I don't know if I've got this right, but my memory serves me right, there was a British baby and a French baby that was stabbed, weren't they, in a park by a failed asylum seeker. You know, I remember seeing that in the news, and that wasn't that long ago, but that didn't blow up into riots, you know. So why now? What's going on? What's going on in the consciousness of France? Well, my thoughts are that what we have here is a form of, you know, I kind of look at a country and I think, if it was a person, what's happening to that person? This is how I kind of do my predictions sometimes. I almost see France as a person, right? And what is happening to that person? What was going on in their psychology, as it were? And it's torn, isn't it? It's torn between what is traditionally French, Because when I look at those riot pictures, I don't see many of the archetypal Frenchmen there. You know, when I look at the faces, what I see is young faces. And sadly, I also see immigrant faces. And it seems to be coming from this. And I think what's behind this is an energy of this same old sense of entitlement in many respects, you know, because this riots happened, right? And what's the first thing they do? They start tearing down and breaking into places like Apple shops and take all the iPads. They start breaking in. They try to sort of, they wanted, and it failed, fortunately, to go onto the Champs-Elysees where all the real money is and start breaking into those shops and grabbing all those goods. It's like, I haven't got it. Why should you have it? I'm going to take it. You know, what sort of consciousness is that? And I think a lot of this comes from the disappointment that people have. The young are disappointed because they're not getting the opportunities that they thought they would have. They've been brought up, I'm afraid, with a very entitled sort of way. The world owes me a living. I should be rich. I should be able to eat in restaurants every day, and all the things that, you know, they take for granted, which really are very much luxuries. And similarly, the people that have come into France by their millions are now finding themselves in ghettos, and they're thinking, well, it's not paved with gold. You know, where's this house I was supposed to get? Where's this big job I was supposed to get? Where's this luxurious life? Here I am in a very different country where I'm seen differently to other people, and I'm not getting anything. So I get angry. This is not what I expected. You know, so that this all boils up, doesn't it? This all boils up and becomes sort of a fervent anger, you know. And please don't misinterpret what I'm saying here, because, you know, I'm just saying that there's so many people pouring into Europe at the moment. I don't think, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think this is racist to say that we should have strong borders. You know, it's more about Europe is full. Britain is more than full. It's bursting at the seams. So it's not racist to say these things, I feel. It's common sense, really. We have to stop this because our societies are being disrupted and destroyed by having a kind of multiculturalism forced upon everybody. You know, I've never voted for multiculturalism, and I'm a very multicultural person because most of my friends, pretty much all of my friends, so large part of them come from other nations. You know, all my interest in India. You know, I've got friends from every nation of the world, which you know, and I believe in one humanity. But what's happening is surely not working the way it is overemphasizing. It's overwhelming traditional cultures. Nobody likes it. And you know, how would you react if it was your business that was having the doors torn down and all what you've worked for hard being taken away, all your designer goods and things being torn out of the shop, you know? Or how would you feel if you were like that man who was attacked when he tried to stop his vehicle being taken away and burnt? You know, he had had bones crushed and hands chopped off. Someone said, I don't know if that's been qualified yet. That was something that was running around on one of the social medias. It might be wrong, but you know, how would you feel? How would you react to people that suddenly decide to come along and steal from you blatantly over some other issue? So it's a disguise, isn't it? This is not what's really going on there, you know. So those are my thoughts anyway, to begin with, anyway, about what I feel about these things. I think what's going to come out of this ultimately is we're going to see, like I've said, we're going to see this is the beginning of the gradual breakup of Europe, because more and more countries are going to start wanting to vote in more strong leaders. Terrible things strong leaders can be sometimes too, but people are going to want strong leaders to counter some of this, what's going on, because these aren't protests. These are just plain evil in my mind. They're very, very bad things, you know. So people are thinking like the same thing. They're thinking, this is not France. This is nothing. This is not, you know, and this is not Britain too. You know, we hear of murders and rapes and all terrible things going on in the old little sleepy villages of Britain. You know, this is not Britain either. And Germans are saying, this isn't Germany. and the Swedish are saying, what happened to all our tolerance? We can't be tolerant people anymore because everything's gone wrong. And I think what's going to happen, and this might happen when Marie Le Pen's never said anything about this, but I get the sense that you are going to get a very strong right-wing type of, it's a wrong word, but extremist leaders in Europe. And I see it being introduced a kind of a two-tier form of citizenship. Because when I was thinking about this some while back in my meditations, I got images of ancient Rome. And as far as I understand, anybody could become a Roman citizen, but they had to earn it. They had to earn it, for example, by doing military service, which in Roman times, I don't know how long a period they would work, but I remember it was a very long time. So they do 15 years military service in order to get citizenship. And that was real full-on military service on the front line. But I could see something similar, of a less extreme extent, happening where a person would gain their citizenship by working in the military or working as a sort of home guard military, sort of for doing things like hospitals and basic services, and a person kind of a two-tier citizenship. I mean, I'm not saying this is what I like or want or anything like that. I'm just saying this is how I feel. I'm getting a feeling of things are going to happen in Europe like this, where a person, who's, say, for example, whose great-grandfather was born in that particular country has citizenship, and those that have secondary citizenship might not be able to get things like here in Britain, for example, national health or social security or things like that. Those things have to come when there's been a person's generations have been here. I'm not saying it's the right thing, but I have a feeling that something like that will emerge. I might have seen it not quite correctly, but I feel that something like that is going to come into the country, and certain things I think are very unfair sometimes, that sometimes very clever people are not easily able to get citizenship. And very brave people, like, say, the Gurkhas in Britain, can't automatically get citizenship, even though they've served our country tremendously, And it seems that when these open borders happen, and I think these riots are a result of that, when these open borders happen, it proves to us all, doesn't it, that who is selecting the people that come into this country? They're not being selected on merit. They're not even being truly selected on need. They're being selected by criminal gangs that are prepared to take money to ship people in. And that applies both here in Britain and through Europe generally. And I'm sure there's a major resentment bubbling underneath. When I say about a culture being like a person, that's like something is bubbling there. Something is wrong. Something's not right with me, Anyway, those are my thoughts of the way it goes. I feared. We live in very weird political times, I'm afraid. We have some very weird thinking out there, I think. I think wokeism is very weird. It's gone that way. Like I say, it was a well-intended idea, but gone completely off the rails. The inclusivity thing has also almost become a bit crackpot very often too, So we're going to be problems. There's going to be problems more in France as it go on. This is going to go on and on. Hungary as well, like I said. Berlin, I'm seeing it as well. And pretty much, all over. All over Europe, we're going to get this type of thing is going to become more and more, because there's a lot of dissatisfied, resentful people who've come to Europe and come to Britain and with hope in their hearts, and it's been dashed, and that is it can't be fulfilled because we just do not have the resources to do that. So what do you think? Am I wrong with what I'm saying? Remember, this isn't my opinion. This is my feelings. This is what I feel the way I go. And I'm not saying that these things are right, but when you see the looting, when you see this sort of feeling of entitlement that seems to be there, you wonder, and is there something political behind this too? Why was in France the mayor's office attacked? What was the reason behind that? Who was behind that? So that's nothing to do with the initial problem, with the what flared it all up, the incident that flared it all up with the police. You know, very easy to attack the police. You're attacking the authority itself, aren't you? You're attacking the very authority itself. So we've got a crazy sort of anarchy going on here, and my fear is it will spread, not all at once, but it will happen again. And you know, and particularly now, since we've been getting recessions here in the UK, I will talk of, and a more difficult world, you know, and once the money runs out, that's when, you know, these things get very difficult. Anyway, thanks. I had to put this one up. Do put your comments about this. I really love to know what you think. But I had to do something on this rather quickly, I felt, because, you know, it was such a big part of the predictions I was making earlier in the year. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me. And don't forget, do give it a like, because, you know, I'm talking quite political stuff here, and they can easily get knocked off YouTube. So it needs, the algorithm needs to see that this is something people are talking about, are interested in. And if you're first time here to the channel, do please follow me. Okay, see you soon. Bye for now. If you look back at my earlier predictions, and in particular the predictions I made on the newspaper, the Sun's website, I did actually say on there, the actual words were, there will be a flu epidemic linked to bioterrorism. And my thoughts are that Liz Truss will make it to the final, be the next PM. I think she will actually have a final battle between her and Rishi Sunak. We've not seen the full end of Boris Johnson either, I tell you. But Rishi Sunak actually will eventually, I feel, be the next leader of the Conservatives. So I think there's going to be a few conflicts that Britain's going to be drawn into, including I think Russia is going to take some moves against Ukraine. I think she will make it past her platinum jubilee, which comes up this year. But I think after that, we'll see a sudden and quick deterioration in the Queen's health. And I think we might lose the Queen towards the end of 2022. There's going to be a huge backlash from over the Netflix programs and screening, because I feel it comes out at a bad time. Charles will come to become King Charles, but his reign, I feel, will be short. And funnily enough, actually, another royal prediction came true only yesterday, which surprised me really, because it was such a weird prediction I'd made. I predicted in my earlier videos from 2021 for 2022 that the king, well, I said Prince Charles at the time, because he wasn't actually king at that time, but I said that Prince Charles would be hit by an egg. And of course, there it is, all in the press today.